One of the things that some of my clients ask me is, Ariana, what is the biggest mistakes people make when designing a kitchen? Most people assume that I'm going to talk about countertops or cabinet color or appliance. The reality is usually that's not the first thing that comes to mind. After years of designing kitchens and building them and furnishing them, and then coming back months, sometimes even years later, I've noticed something interesting. The kitchen people love aren't always the kitchen that could cost the most, and there might not be the largest, not even always the most visually impressive. They're the kitchens that usually feel easy. The kitchens where everything seems to happen naturally, where people gather in the right spot, where nobody needs to bump into each other when they're moving through the space, where mornings feels calm, dinner prep is effortless. And the opposite is also true. I've walked into kitchens where they're absolutely beautiful, beautiful stone, beautiful cabinets, beautiful lighting, everything looks right, but something still is off. And after talking to homeowners for a few minutes, here's what shows up. They could say, well, we really never sit here, or that corner drives me crazy, or I wish we have thought about this before, or nobody uses that space. These comments almost have nothing to do with finishes. They always have to do with the layout. Because kitchen isn't something you look at, it is something you use. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Now, if you are new here, I'm Ariana Adireh Anderson, founder of ARIID Group. I've been doing this for almost 25 years now, designing homes and building them. So let's talk about some mistakes that I have seen over the years. Let's talk about kitchen and the things that show up that create friction. Now, even with little friction, it will pile up. Even a beautiful kitchen can start feeling exhausting. This one is probably the most common. I understand why. People love islands. I love islands. Where everyone gathers, it's where conversations happen, is where grocery end up when you come from a store, homework gets done. A dog might be sitting waiting for something to fall off. Life happens around islands. The problem is that somewhere along the way, bigger became better. And what I've noticed is that often people design the largest possible island they can physically fit into the room. And here's what the problem is. Somewhere along the way, bigger became better. And what I've noticed is that people often design larger island than the room can physically hold instead of the island that the space actually needs. So here's the difference. Because once the kitchen gets finished, something happens. Someone opens the dishwasher, someone walks through, a third person grabs the drink from the refrigerator, and suddenly everyone is negotiating for space. Everyone is waiting for each other, turning sideways, stepping around doors, pausing. What started as a beautiful kitchen slowly became a series of little interruptions. And our body noticed these interruptions, not consciously, but they create stress. Tiny movements of frictions that repeats every single day. Luxury to me has never been around having the largest island. Luxury is when nobody has to think about movement through the space. When movement feels natural, then the space feels gorgeous. What I learned is that a slightly smaller island often creates a better kitchen. And that's something you experience every single day. This one usually starts long before construction ever began. It starts during design process. A lot of people design a kitchen are focusing on fitting everything into that space. The sink needs a space, a dishwasher needs a place, a range needs a place, refrigerator needs a space. And before long, everything has been assigned a location. The problem is that assigning a location isn't the same thing as designing the layout. What I've learned over years is the kitchen isn't just a collection of cabinets and appliances. It is a collection of daily routines. When I am reviewing a floor plan, I'm not asking myself whether everything fits. I'm asking myself how the space is going to be used. I'm mentally walking through the kitchen before it even exists. Where do the groceries land? Where does someone stand while unloading the dishwasher? What happens when someone is cooking and the other person is cleaning up? Where do people naturally cross paths? These are the questions I'm asking about. Because a floor plan can look complete logically and still create friction once people start using the space. One of the most common places that happens is in the corner. Especially if a sink ends up being there, a dishwasher right next to it, a range, then everything gets packed into the same area that technically could fit, but nobody stops to ask whether it should be there. When the kitchen gets built, everyone needs the same area all at once. Someone is rinsing dishwasher, someone is cooking, the other one needs something out of the cabinet. And what looked like fine on paper feels crowded in real life. The issue isn't the corner itself. The issue was that there were too many important activities placed in the same area. When I design a kitchen, I want each area to have enough breathing room to do its job comfortably. The cleanup area, the prep area, the cooking area. When those zones start to overlap too heavily, the kitchen begins to create stress instead of reducing it. And most people don't really think about what's happening. They just know that the kitchen never feels quite comfortable as they hoped it would. This one is one of those things people really think about during design. And I could understand why. When you're planning a kitchen, you're making hundreds of decisions. Cabinet style, cabinets, countertops, appliances, lighting. Everyone is focused on the big decision. But what I've learned over the years is that daily life happens in small moments. You pull out a hot pan out of the oven, where does that go? You unload groceries, where do they land? You take something out of the microwave, where do you sit it down? These seems like tiny details until you repeat them every day for the next 10, 15 years. When I'm reviewing kitchen layouts, I'm constantly thinking about those moments, not just the appliances and where they go, what happens around the appliances, because that's where people actually interact with the kitchen. I've seen beautiful kitchen where wall ovens were perfectly centered and looked fantastic on elevation. The problem was that every time something came out of the oven, there wasn't no place to put it down. So people ended up carrying the hot dish across the entire room, not once, every single time they use that appliance. These are the kind of things that don't show up on a rendering. It doesn't show up in a floor plan, but it absolutely shows up in everyday life. And what makes this mistake so interesting is most layout mistakes aren't dramatic. Everyone talks about kitchens and nobody walks into the kitchen and immediately says something is wrong. Instead, it's little annoyance, little inconvenience, little interruptions. When it happens again and again and again, what I've learned is that the kitchen people love the most aren't always the kitchens with the most features. They're the kitchens where someone thought through all of those little moments before the kitchen was ever built. Great design isn't just about how the kitchen looks. It's about understanding how one will use it every day. This is one people rarely think about when they're looking into kitchen designs. They're looking at the island, they're looking at the cabinets, they're looking at the appliance. No one is standing in the showroom asking where will the trash pull-out be. But this is one of the things I've learned after designing so many kitchens for a number of years, is that some of the most important decisions are the ones people really don't notice. When the project is finished, well, that's a different story. They are the daily use decisions. When I'm reviewing kitchens, I'm looking in not only how and where the sink will go, I'm looking on how everything happens around the sink. How does someone clean up after dinner? How does someone load the dishwasher? How does the food and where does the food scraps go in the trash? Where do the dishes get rinsed? And how many steps does that require? Because these things happen every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, and they're part of the same routine. You're cleaning the plate, you rinse it, you put it in a dishwasher, you throw away something. These actions naturally happen together. The problem is that many kitchen layouts are designed to assign location to things rather than thinking through how will things work together. The sink got a spot, the dishwasher got the spot, did the trash get a spot? Technically, everything fits, but nobody really talked about through the space and how is it going to function all together. I've seen kitchens where trash was on the other side of the room of the sink. On paper, it fits. In real life, cleanup, well, it required more movement than it should be. Not because the kitchen was too big, but because the things were placed in the wrong. Not because the finishes were wrong, but because the layout wasn't thoughtfully planned. One of the things that I do during the design is mental walkthroughs. I walk mentally in through the kitchen. I imagine how will someone prep dinner. I imagine how someone will unload the dishwasher. I imagine how someone will stand at the sink and help clean up. I'm looking for those moments where the process starts to break down, because these are the things that the homeowner ends up living with every day. The best cleanup zone feels effortless. Everything is where you expect it to be. Everything works together. Nobody is taking unnecessary steps. Nobody is walking back and forth across the kitchen. The process simply feels natural. And that's what good design should be. It shouldn't force people to adapt to the kitchen. The kitchen should support the way people already live. That's why I pay so much attention to these areas when I design, because these are exact not because they're exciting, because they're used constantly. And when they're planned well, people may never notice, but they will absolutely notice when they are not. This one isn't really about a refrigerator. It's about understanding who uses the kitchen. One of the things I think people underestimate is how many times during the day a refrigerator gets open. Everyone uses it. A person making dinner, kids grabbing a snack, someone gets a drink, guests looking for ice. The refrigerator belongs to the entire household. The range does not as much, prep zone, not necessarily. Those areas usually belong to one person at a time. When I'm reviewing the layouts, I'm always paying attention to how many people move through the kitchen. Not how it looks, how does it work? Because if the refrigerator is placed right in the middle of the cooking zone, everyone ends up crossing through that same area at the same time. A person cooking gets interrupted, traffic starts to build up, kitchen feels busier than it needs to. I've seen it happen in even a very large kitchen. It isn't the size issue, it's the planning issue. The best layouts allow people to use the kitchen at the same time without constantly getting into each other's way. That's what creates a feeling of ease. This is one of the things I appreciate more and more the longer I do this. Earlier in my career, I probably didn't think about it enough. Today, I do. Because I've seen people use the kitchens and how they live. On paper, a cabinet and a drawer both provide storage. In real life, they're used very differently. One of the things I pay attention is to how much effort everyday tasks require. Can you reach and get something really easily? Can you see it when you're looking for it? Can you access it without kneeling down, without digging around, without moving 5 other things? Because these little movements happen constantly. After a while, all of these extra movements start to add up. Reaching, searching, grabbing, bending. It's not difficult, it just gets old. This is why I tend to prefer drawers whenever it makes sense. This sounds like such a small detail, and it's exactly why people overlook it. Until they live with it for a bit, they notice it every single day. When I'm reviewing layout, I'm thinking about how people perform routine tasks, not where only things fit. How are they actually used? The cleanup after dinner is one of those routine. You rinse, you load, you prep. The process feels natural. The dishwasher should support that movement, not fight it. I've seen layout where the dishwasher was shoved into the corner because it looked better in the elevation. The problem is people don't live in elevation, they use kitchens. And when the layout forces someone to twist and step around it and work harder than necessary, it becomes noticeable. Good design isn't just about how something looks, it's about how something feels to use. This has become more common over the last years. People do research, they visit the showroom, they save an inspo photo, and before long, they have a list of things they want. A steam oven, warming drawer, beverage refrigerator, coffee station, a wine maker, ice maker, you name it. And before you know, the kitchen is running out of room. One of the things I've learned is that every appliance takes something. It takes a wall space, counter space, storage room, breathing room. I had clients come to me with a wish list that were longer than the actual wall space. And this is where experience becomes so important. Designer's job isn't just to say yes to everything. Designer's job is to understand what will create the best experience. And sometimes adding one or more appliance can improve the kitchen, and sometimes it makes the kitchen worse. The kitchen that feels the most comfortable aren't always the ones with the most features. They're the ones that have the right balance. This one usually makes me smile because everyone wants an island seating. And they're usually right. The island has become one of the most important gathering places in the home. People don't plan to end up there, they just do. Kids do their homework there, guests gather there, conversation happens there, coffee gets poured there, life happens there. The problem is that sometimes people design seating for appearance instead of comfort. The stools might look beautiful, they look okay, they look beautiful in a catalog. Everything looks exactly the way you imagine, but no one wants to sit there. They sit there for 5 minutes before moving somewhere else. One thing I have learned about people is that comfort wins every single time. People will sit where they're comfortable. They will stand where they're comfortable. Where seating is comfortable, longer conversation will happen. The room will feel more connected. That's what makes these decisions so important. We're not really designing seating, we're designing experiences. This might be the least glamorous topic of the entire video, but it's incredibly important. Electrical planning isn't really about outlets. It's about how you use the space. When I'm designing a kitchen, I'm thinking about where someone is charging their phone, where does the coffee machine gets plugged in, where do small appliances get used, where someone might put their laptop and needs a charger. These are common centers. Workspace, home workstation, gathering space. And when electrical planning gets pushed to the end, people spend years creating workarounds. Electrical extension cord, chargers on a countertop, appliances plugged into places that don't make sense. The goal isn't more outlets. The goal is having everything thought and planned before a wall gets closed up. The best electrical planning is invisible. No one notices, but everyone benefits from it. Now, this mistake is underneath all of the others. Every issue I've talked about today eventually comes back to the same thing: understanding how people live. One of the things I learned over the years is that it's relatively easy to fit everything into one space. Most people can figure that out, where the sink goes, where the refrigerator goes, where the dishwasher goes. The challenge isn't fitting things into that space. The challenge is understanding how things will work together once they're being used. When I'm reviewing floor plans, I mentally live in that kitchen before it gets built. I'm thinking about the groceries being unloaded, dinners being made, kids walking through that room, holidays gathering, your Saturday morning, the dishwasher being open, guests standing around the island. This is where great design happens. It's not in the cabinet schedule, it's not in the appliance list, in understanding how people will actually use the space. I've seen kitchens with extraordinary budgets that never quite felt right, and I've seen kitchens with fairly more modest budgets that felt wonderful. The difference wasn't always in the materials, it was in the thought that went into the layout. Years later, people don't remember the details in the drawings, they focus on how the kitchen feels, whether it's comfortable, whether it's easy to use. At the end of the day, the kitchen isn't about kitchen, it's about life that happens in that space. It's about conversations, it's about family dinners, holidays, and your ordinary Thursday night. Memories that happen there. To me, that's what great design is supposed to be. Simply supporting the lifestyle. Comfort every day. The best kitchens aren't always the ones that people admire, they're the ones that people love living in. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about kitchen decisions that I will make again and again if I was designing my own kitchen today. The choices that have been proving themselves over time and things that I still love years later. So subscribe and I will see you there.